Well, students at Saturday's March for Our Lives rally were quick to call for a ban on assault weapons, but do they really know what that means? Listen.
For banning an assault weapon, do you know what an assault weapon is?
Yeah, it's assault weapon. It's like
what is an assault weapon?
I consider any. I'm not even against just assault weapons. I'm pretty much against most guns.
I guess.
Right. No, I guess. Here with more is Media Director for CampusReform.org, Cabot Phillips. So, Cabot, you went out there and wanted to find out what people were protesting. You found out assault weapons was one of the things they wanted.
We went out asking a different set of questions, and after interview after interview, everyone kept saying we need to ban assault weapons. I thought surely they'll know something basic about it, and it was very clear they did not. And look, if you are going to advocate for real-world policy that will impact millions of Americans, you need to have real-world answers and be ready for a debate. And I think a lot of this stems from a lack of appreciation and understanding of the Second Amendment. So I began to ask them about the Constitution, people's Second Amendment right to self-preservation, and the responses were about what you'd expect.
I think that the Second Amendment at this time is outdated. I think that the wording needs to be revisited.
I think it's something that was meant for a different time.
I think the Constitution in and of itself is something that's outdated.
I don't think it applies in today's society.
I don't think it leads to anything good or productive or peaceful.
They're so right. Just tear up the Constitution.
It never leads to anything good, like a country.
And we've been seeing how in class, this is something we see all the time on college campuses with Leadership Institute's Campus Forum, how people don't actually learn about the Constitution in class. They're not learning about how it's meant to protect people in society today. I wonder if this same logic applies to the First Amendment. Because the Founding Fathers, they never could have imagined Twitter. They couldn't have imagined YouTube and all these things to get rights out there. Or freedom of the press. Should we restrict the right of all journalists because a few journalists are misusing the freedom of the press? It's collective punishment for the actions of a few individuals, and now these same people, again, it's good that young people are getting involved, but you need to understand some of the basics of what you're asking for, because these are real-world laws that will affect many people.
You know, as a reporter, when you go out, you get a feel for the story, and then you come back to the newsroom to write your story, and you say, all right, what was the story out there, and what would you say if I asked you that?
I think the main takeaway was, number one, how organized it was. I think a lot of people are interested in who is helping all this organization. It's obviously not just students that are doing it, and that was an interesting aspect of it, of who is organizing all of it. And number two, it was definitely how passionate the students were about change, but how many of them had not actually been taught on what kind of change they were looking for, and they didn't have many specifics.
So it's more like they're against school violence. They just don't know what to do about it.
And everyone's against school violence. And sadly, the thing that I noticed is when the second I began to push back a little bit, people would start to say, well, you have blood on your hands. If you don't support stricter gun laws, you support school shootings. That's the breakdown that we have now. It's all one or it's all the other.
But the instinct should be security. Why was I gunned down? Nobody was shooting back for me. But there's not, that sentiment didn't prevail. It goes against logic.
And it also goes against, they said we haven't seen any action taking place since then. We've seen legislation in Florida. We saw the Stop School Violence Act here in D.C. And there's a narrative, though, that
Fix in the budget.
Exactly. If we don't get exactly what we want, then this is not action. And that's not how legislation works. That's not how compromise works. And we need to do what's going to keep the most people safe, address the root of the problem, not just something that we view as scary, in this case, assault weapons.
Maybe if you're going to protest something, you should know exactly what you're protesting.
That's an important part of it.
All right. Cabot, thank you very much.
The most important part, probably. Thanks so much, Cabot.